Yes, let's start, and more people are likely to drop in as I speak. I like to welcome you all to this roundtable on nonviolent strategy for defending Indigenous land. My name is Päivi Lujala, and I'm hosting this Path to Ottawa event on behalf of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association. And before I let Roberto to introduce our distinguished speakers today, I'll start around the round table. I like just to say a few words about the Environmental Peacebuilding Association that we call MPACS. Also, a little bit about the Path to Ottawa, which this event is part of, and then a little bit about our upcoming conference in Ottawa later this year. I will also put a couple links in the chat later, so that if you're interested, you can just go and find more information about any of these things that I mentioned. So the Environmental Peacebuilding Association we are basically a global community consisting of researchers, practitioners, and decision makers that care about the environment, conflict and peace, and how these influence each other. We are open to all disciplines, and what we like to do and love to do is to provide opportunities to members and non-members to engage with each other through events like today in our conference and through other types of collaboration. The conference in Ottawa that it's held in June this year is our biggest event, and this is the conference that we have every second year. This year it's hosted by the University of Ottawa. Next time in 28, it's going to be in Nairobi. And leading to this international conference on environmental peacebuilding, we have this Path of Ottawa, which is a series of events and different types of initiatives that lead up to the conference. And mostly these are these kind of smaller thematic events like we are having today. But there are also other types of initiatives that you can read in the web pages. I would like to mention that what we plan to do and what we are doing is that through these events, we are taking some notes, key takeaways that we then plan to present and discuss at the conference. So that I think is a good thing that we are here. I don't know, we are 17 now, which is really nice, but so many people are coming, but we also will take issues from these events to the conference. And if you want to learn more, or if you want to join the association, just please check our web pages, and very, very welcome. And not at least, you're very welcome to this event today. I'm really looking forward to it. It sounds very interesting and very important to me. So, but welcome, and Robert, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and welcome to everyone from my side. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Robert. I work for the Academy for Conflict Transformation within ProPeace, located in Germany. We offer trainings for professionals who are within the HDP nexus, so people from humanitarian work, from development cooperation, and from peace building. We originally come from peace building. And we are kind of extending ourselves a little bit also towards environmental peace building. This is how we as an organization are connected to NPACS, and are very excited to be part of this path to Ottawa. And yeah, today we have the opportunity to learn about two different contexts. Originally, three were planned, but one of the speakers couldn't make it, unfortunately. But this will give us more time to dive deeply into the two different contexts where we see maybe similarities and differences and connections between the different factors for conflict pressuring the indigenous people living on the land and their creative struggle to keep it and to defend their rights and their lands. We will make it in a way that we will have one presentation, then a short Q&A and a little bit room for discussion, and then followed by the second presentation and a second Q&A. So the first speaker is Defe. She works in a civil society organization called Pusaka, who advocates for indigenous people rights and environmental justice in West Papua in Indonesia. And we have Alex with us, who works with, I just have the Spanish name, you will translate it later probably yourself, la Coordinadora Nacional de Defensa de Territorios Indígenas, Originarios, Campesinos y Área Protegidas, shortly CONTUCAP, fighting for the rights in Bolivia for I think more than 15 years by now. And before I hand over to these wonderful speakers, I would give us all the opportunity to get a sense of who is in the room. And for that, I would ask you to follow the link in the chat, which leads you to a Menti. And just so we get an impression of who is there. Please let me know if it works for you.
Robert, I'm not sure if it's working actually, because on my side I only see the drawing. I cannot type anything.
Okay. Did it change now? Great. Thank you for that feedback, Han. We have Brazil, we have Cologne in Germany, more Cologne in Berlin in Germany, Finland, Indonesia, Bolivia, Honduras. A lot of Germany today. Congo and London, welcome. We'll wait a few more answers before we go on. La Paz, Bolivia. All right, I'll put on the next slide. So my second question is, from which field are you joining? Are you coming more from the peace building side, the humanitarian work, the development work, or everything that is related to conservation and environment, or the climate side, or the security side, or none of these? All right, we have a bit more people joining from the peace building side, then followed by 4 people from topics related to environment, and then more or less evenly distributed between development and climate and security. Great, thank you. And the last question, maybe something you can fill it in. What connects you to the topic of today's session? Is it personal interest, professional interests, or do you bring specific questions maybe? Right. So one of us has been developing trainings for peace workers about this topic. So with this topic, I assume it's environmental peace building in general, and not so much indigenous people's struggles for the land. Right. Right, a lot of interest there. That's great. For sure, there is a strong connection. I fully agree there. Right, we'll wait 1 or 2 more answers. Maybe as we wait for 1 or 2 more answers, a short note from my side, feel encouraged to use the chat to shamelessly advertise your organization and yourself if you want to. If you have events coming up, you can, especially in the beginning, use the chat to share this. I think it's always a good way to connect during these sessions. And yeah, with that and with the curiosity that we find in the audience, I would say we'll give it a go. And I happily hand over to you, Dorthea.
Okay, hello everyone. It's very nice to meet you. Thank you for having me and thank you for registering and be here. I'm currently in Jakarta, Indonesia. It's 7 p.m. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, wherever you are. And yeah, Robert already introduced me before. Today, I'll introduce myself again. And right now, I'm going to talk about the nonviolent strategies for defending indigenous land in Indonesia, especially in West Papua, because I work in a CSO and we focus on West Papua. So most of the whole conversation will be based on the case study of what happened in West Papua. So next, Robert. As I mentioned, and as what Robert mentioned as well, I work from a civil society organization called Pusaka Bendala Rakyat. We advocate for IP's right and environmental justice, especially in West Papua. Not all over in Papua, but only the few parts of the island from it's for the southern part and the western part. Maybe just to show you about where is Papua. So yeah, this is Indonesia. We have more than 17,000 islands. I think the fourth country with the biggest population in the world. And Papua is in the easternmost part of the country. The one that if you combine it with Papua New Guinea, it will look like the bird, the Kasuari bird. But because of the Britain and the Netherlands divided us, we're only half. We are the western part of the island, and the eastern part of the island is Papua New Guinea. And Pusaka work specifically in, yeah, your in Papua. This is the island, and only in the western part we call it the head of the bird, because if you can imagine a cassowary, and then in the southern part, this is the area of work of Pusaka. Yeah, so just a little bit background of the IP situation and I'm going to talk about my work and Pusaka's work in accompanying these communities, the community that live near plantation area, especially palm plantation and timber. So just to give you a big background of the IP situation in Indonesia, next, Robert. So I think it's similar with some of you, I mean, the experience of the indigenous communities in where some of you are right now. At this moment, Indonesia have a really bad president. I don't know if you know him, Prabowo. And since the last presidency, Jokowi, we learned that the government treats the country as a corporation. So they're trying to find the best way to be the first world country and use Papua as sacrificing zone. It's not only in Papua, but the whole country, in Sumatra, in Kalimantan, and it's already happened since before we were Indonesia became an independent, and because they treat the president, the government treat the country as the corporation. Most of the times they created a lot of program or projects, and it centered on the extractive industry in Indonesia. So we don't know what is the free prior informed consent works in Indonesia, because most of the time when the government or the central government already said that, oh, we want to build this and this and this, they map everything in Jakarta. Maybe you can still imagine the Indonesian map before. So people in Java, they are the one who decided whatever happened in the whole island, especially in Papua, because sometimes Papua is seen as an empty land to do whatever they want to support the industry. And yeah, so the IP status in Indonesia, Indonesian government doesn't ratify ILO 169, so they didn't acknowledge the indigenous territory and everything. So they only recognize the they didn't ratify ILO 169, so they didn't acknowledge that there is an indigenous people, even though they one of the signature of UNDRIP. Still, there is a debatable concept of indigenous people in Indonesia. They said that in Indonesia there is no indigenous people, or everyone is indigenous people. So they said then if you want to have your specific status, we only recognize masyarakat hukum adat or indigenous people that recognized by the Indonesian regulation instead of just masyarakat adat. So in order to protect your forests and land, you have to get these recognitions and that the government know that you exist on top of the land. Next, Robert. Oh, sorry, I think I forgot to next. I copied it twice, yeah. And specifically for Papua, it's a very unique case because there is this part, like racism is playing a big part for all of these decisions that happen in Papua. For example, this is one statement from, it used to be one of Indonesian general, but it was in the 90s. He said that the literal translation from this sentence is Jakarta is not interested with Papuan. We only have interest towards its the natural resources. So most of the thing or the regulations that happen in Indonesia for Papua is very different with other regulations in different area. For example, if a company wanted to own a concession in Java for like 5,000 hectares of forest, in Papua, the company can double the area, and it's in Indonesian regulation. So the racism happen daily in Papua, but it's also already in the system. Yeah, next, Robert. So that's why one of the biggest campaign or strategy that the indigenous communities do in order to secure their land and forests is using this campaign. It's Papua Bukan Tanah Kosong, or I think the literal translation would be West Papua is not an empty land. Recognize, respect, and protect the rights of indigenous people of Papua. So this is one of the main theme behind of this specific strategy that we always use and do in Papua. For example, the main thing that my organization work in the community is to get the recognition, even though we don't want to stress on this, because we want to acknowledge that our life is not based on the recognition by the government, but because it's something that we have to follow the government scheme, we're also preparing the requirements to protect the land and forest. So we do mapping, documenting the history, the customary law, and everything, and then we submit it to the local government, and the local government, if they agree to recognize, then they will create their own like a local regulation, then the national government will recognize this. And then we also do capacity building. We did a lot of critical education in villages regarding the national policies that like what are the options that the government have, and how can we use this to protect our land and forest, but also another capacity building like the leadership or specific issues, for example, climate crisis, because yeah, we can talk about climate crisis in like Berlin or London and in Jakarta, but if you talk in people in villages, you have to translate it in very simple context. And we also going to take the litigation approach. For example, in 2 years ago, we accompanying two tribes, Auyu tribe and Moi, one of each of them from the western and the southern part. We sued 3 palm plantation companies in Indonesia, and then we sued it at the local level, but then we lost the case and we moved it to the regional level. We lost the case again, and then we moved to national level. But yeah, we lost the case again. At least that was our first time accompanying an indigenous community to sue companies. And we learn a lot from the process. And then we also do advocacy tour, especially visit to Jakarta, try to engage with the people at the legislative level, or sometimes the community will bring the paper that we already did together for a recognition status and bring it to the Ministry of Forestry or other ministries related. And yeah, so after this, I think most of these are the only pictures. So this is when we did mapping together with the communities, because there are only 11 of us. We can't do this because by ourselves. Because yeah, if we talk about indigenous territories, it's not as simple as from like the straight line, but it's from this tree to that lake. So, and then it takes time, normally more than 2 years to finally get the map. And then we will try to create the map, give it back to the communities for them to verify it. And then this map is one of the the document that we submit together to the local government for the recognition status. Yeah, yes, this is like the process that we did in villages regarding the mapping. This is the example of the map that we finally made after 2 years. It's from one community called Yainan. It's in the southern part. You can see the straight line where it were divided by the Dutch and the Britain, but yeah, because it's indigenous communities, their territory is cross-border, because the country is a new country. Indonesia just got their independence in 45. So yeah, and we use this map for a specific case that I will talk about, but just to show that there are 10 sugarcane companies that assigned or get concession from the central government, while the central government didn't recognize this map yet, so it's like overlapped with the indigenous territory. The communities area is the yellow part, and the red one is the 10 sugarcane companies. And we also do capacity building. It's very simple, but we think it's super important how to documenting cases. We discuss about, do you have strategies? What do you think we can do? Or if we have an idea, we will talk with the communities. And yeah, we do this regularly through a whole year. And yeah, next, Robert. This is the advocacy tour part. This is with some representative from the south and the west. We went to the Ministry of Forestry in Indonesia to bring the documents, but also to share what happened on the ground. Because Indonesia is a very big country. Sometimes it's hard for the government to fly, even though it's their job to do it. But so we go to Jakarta, just to the capital city. So it's part of our advocacy strategy. Thanks, Robert. And this is the litigation process that we did 2 years ago. We bring some witnesses directly from the villages who came. Maybe it's not clear, but you can see under the chair, people bring what's inside their forest to show it to the judge, that if all of this area become palm plantation, they will not get access to the forest again. But yeah, we lost the case. And next, Robert. And this is one of the ongoing cases that we are currently working on. It's related with the Yainan community tribes map that I showed you before. So Indonesian government 2 years ago decided they wanted to open an area that will use more than 2 million hectares for the sugarcane plantation and rice fields project on top of the customary land of 5 tribes. This is 2 years ago, but at the end of last year, the government expand the area to the whole province, because this map only show Merauke Regency, but it expand to the whole South Papua province. So they added another four regency. And this is a national strategic project, so we cannot intervene it. And then this is happened without FPIC process or anything. It's just we just suddenly heard that the government announced, we will open this food estate project. It will support the whole people in Indonesia. But what about the indigenous community? That's why we mentioned Papua is a sacrificing zone for Indonesia. And when the community heard this, they did a lot of protests, because they were reminded Merauke is not the first time. This is not the first time the government opened the food estate project, because it already happened in 2010, and then it failed. So when they heard about it, they reject the project, and this is the time when we. Oh, okay. Sorry, Robert. Can you continue? Yeah. So when they heard about it, they did some kind of demonstration. For example, this is in a village in Merauke with banner. They said, we cannot live without, we can live without palm and sugarcane, but we cannot live without forest and land. It's in the grassroots level. And next, Robert. We also did some demonstration together in front of some government offices in Merauke. So we did this demonstration at the local level. And then next, Robert, we moved to the national level, to Jakarta. This is when we did another demonstration to reject the project in front of the Ministry of Defense, because in this project, most of the militarization is happening. They heavily involved, starting from guarding the concession of the company until working as the farmer. And this is when the intimidation starting to happen to most of our environmental human rights defender, but also to our office in Pusaka. Next, Robert. But we did something about it. We also sent an urgent appeal to the UN using the special procedure mechanism. We sent a letter stating our concern about the project, and few months later, on March 2025, we got a response from 9 special rapporteur led by the special rapporteur on the right to food. They sent 2 letters to Indonesian government and to one of the sugarcane companies called GPA. They sent a letter stating their concern towards this project, started from the concern in right to food issues, the health of women, the right of women and children, and also freedom of expression. But more than that, they also mentioned the local and global implication of this massive deforestation that happened in Merauke, not only for people in Papua and Indonesia, but for everyone. And 1 month later, Indonesian replied the letter, but it is a very template letter, because they said that yes, we acknowledge and that there is these activities in Merauke, but so far we know that there isn't any request from any tribes in Merauke who submit a request to get the recognition as the Masyarakat Hukum Adat, or to recognize. So it's still legal for this company to open their area. Next, Robert. So yeah, but yeah, we use that letter to campaign, and still campaigning until right now, to prove that West Papua is not an empty land. Try to use every platform that we have, and then try to also create some kind of activities with the communities on the ground. And next, Robert. And this is one of the activities that grow from the communities. There is one big movement in Papua at the moment. It's called the Red Cross movement. It started from the Auyu tribe, one of the tribe that sued the company. These tribes, they already use all of different approach to be able to kick this company, but it seems not working for them. So they decided to mark their own territory with this Red Cross, because the only hope that we got at this moment for the communities is God. So the Auyu tribe already planted more than 1,400 Red Crosses in their own indigenous territories. And when the people, okay, I don't know if I have one more picture after this, Robert. Oh no, sorry. So when the people from Merauke heard or listened or know about this movement, they also starting to plant their own Red Crosses in Merauke, as a form of rejection. And yeah, I think I passed my time to present, but that's all what we did so far, and we're still trying to connect to get more and more strategies. If you have suggestion or anything for our work, I will be very grateful. So yeah, that's all. I'm giving back to you, Robert.
Thank you so much, Defe. Well, the floor is open for questions. We have about 15 minutes to have questions, or also comments are very welcome. And you can either ask via the chat or lift your hand in Zoom. Give it another few seconds so you can think about it. Sylvia, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. I would have one question for understanding concerning the status, and I have a question for a follow-up. The question of understanding on the status, you mentioned that your groups were actually trying to move from one kind of status to another one. Could you maybe give some more details on the different and what it actually means for your work? And then the question for follow-up, you mentioned that you tried to bring one of the cases or the cases through different judicial status, so to say. So how do you deal with it now that you've lost this one particular case? What was the reason? What were the reasons given that you weren't accorded, and how do you work with that experience? What consequences do you actually draw from that to maybe also change your strategy? So, thank you.
Dorthea, you want to answer that right away?
Yes. So for the first question, it's about the status. The Indonesian government doesn't recognize indigenous communities in Indonesia. They only know this term in Bahasa. It said masyarakat hukum adat, or the literal meaning is indigenous people recognized by the government regulation. So in order to secure your land and forest, you have to get this recognition from the government so that your status can change from masyarakat adat to masyarakat hukum adat, or from just indigenous people to indigenous people that recognized by law. And if you don't have this status, then your land and forest will seen as an empty land. No one lived on top of the land, so they can do whatever they want in the name of development. It is an interesting case because last year in 2025, one of the Ministry of Forestry, he gave more than 300,000 hectares again to palm concession, and when we tried to protest about it, he said no one lives on top of this area. So what is it, the concept of I don't know, in Netherlands maybe domenverklaring, like it is an empty land. So yes, and my organization support the communities to get that recognition from the government, but it is a super hard work because for the map it took time, at least 1 to 2 years to get a map for one clan. And if you talk about one tribe, we need more time and with others documents as well. And then with the map and the documents, we bring it to the local government. If they accept, they will create a decree that stated that the local government now recognize this community as a indigenous people that recognized by law. And then that documents we have to show it to the ministries, or if there is a company that wanted to open their area as a proof, as a legal proof, which is ironic because the indigenous community is already there even before Indonesia became a country. So yeah, that's the work that we do. But at this moment, one of indigenous organization in Indonesia is trying to pursue the government and ask the government to create a specific indigenous peoples regulation at the national level. So we have one regulation that can facilitate all of these indigenous issues. Because right now, every time we go to the national level and wanted to talk to Ministry of Forestry regarding the deforestation, they will say, oh, but you're an indigenous people, your problem is with the land, so you have to go to the agrarian ministry. And then when we go there, they said, oh, it's related with, there isn't one specific institution. So yeah, we're also part of the coalition to advocate for this one specific regulation. And the second one, it was our first time going through this litigation process. When it goes to the I forget the English word, but the last level of like Indonesian, it's not constitution, but the judges in Indonesia who managing the cases of indigenous people and forests, there are only 5 judges. So the whole decisions regarding Indonesian the forest and land in Indonesia, it's only based on this 5%. And when we bring our case, 2 of them rejected the project because they were questioning the legal status again. But you didn't submit. We don't see this. So you're not entity that recognized by Indonesian regulation. And after that, we were sad, but it's good for us because this is the first time, and then we wanted to show that we already going through these different strategies or these different ways from the government side. So this is where we can also ask for help from international. So because we already do surpass all of this level. So this is we want you to now help us in pressuring our government, something. I hope I answer your question. Yeah.
Thank you, Dorthea. There are two more questions in the chat. So one is whether you have allies in the parliament or other high-profile figures that represent you, and connected to that, in your experience, what were more successful nonviolent strategies when it comes to both confronting the state and also navigating the differences of opinions across the coalition? Thank you for the questions, Natalia.
For the allies, yes, there are some Papuans at the national legislative, but at the end of the day, if it most of our allies will very supported when it relates with their own interests, because most of the other, based on experience, the other Papuans who is in the legislative at the national level, most of them are coming from the background of like companies, so they were there to help their own interest. But also, so if some of them are very vocal, most of them will not get in their own projects anymore, or they will slowly gone. Like they will not be, because most of the time at the national level, people use Papua only as representative, because not because of our own qualities most of the time. So it's hard to have specific allies, but these people is also the one who help us. If you want to do advocacy, we will contact them. Can we talk with your friends in the legislative or in the ministries? They will open their space, because it's one of the tasks that they need to do as politicians, to listen to the people who choose them. But that's it. We don't have allies who always 100% very like supporting the struggles at the national level. At the local level, we have a lot of allies, but whatever happened or decided by the local level, sometimes the central government will not agree with it. As what I mentioned before, most of the decision that made by Papuans will be denied by the central government. And being more effective, this is embarrassing to admit, but there is this term in Indonesia called no viral, no justice. The government will not say something about it until everyone tell the government that we know that there is this thing happen. For example, in 2024, there is this one massive hashtags in social media called All Eyes on Papua. It happened because what happened in Palestine, after people sharing the post All Eyes on Rafah, it was the same time when we bring some representative to do advocacy tour in Jakarta, the Ayu and the Moi tribes. And then we found out that in social media, someone put this All Eyes on Papua and post the picture of these communities that is currently fighting for their rights in court. And millions of people share these hashtag everywhere. And then that's where the government starting to respond. Like the whole trial process is in 2023, beginning of 2024, but the government say nothing until this hashtag shows. Like everyone in Indonesia knows about it. Then we got response from the vice president, the Ministry of Agrarian, the Ministry of Forestry, and also the Ministry of Investment. But the Ministry of Investment's response is a bit funny, because they said, don't let this civil society organization provocate you and other things. Yeah. But yeah, that's the response came after this went viral. And we are trying to create that momentum again, where not only us in Papua that said we do our part, we need more and more people to talk about it so that they get annoyed and can respond. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's take one last question from the chat and then we'll move to Bolivia. So Selena asks how you start working with the particular communities, whether you did reach out or proactively, or how did it come to play?
We have different cases, but at first, this is why we chose to be based in Jakarta instead of in Papua, even though we work 100% in Papua, because here we can get access to information easily. And this is where, like for example, when the government said, "Oh, we will open another food estate project in Papua," so we heard it first, then our friends in Papua. So this is where we started to share the information to everyone in Papua, and then we will look at the project, and then we approach the communities and share. So do you know that this thing will happen to you? And just share the basic information, and then we will work together. But in other cases, because the access of information is very limited in Papua, it's very hard. Even the foreigner can't go easily to Papua without so many questions. But it's easy for you to come on festivals. But to visit, you will get thousands of questions. Why are you visiting, etc. Because of, well, this is also related with what happened in history, but also the ongoing independence movement that is happening in Papua. But it's very limited. You don't always hear news regarding Papua. But when we are in Papua, we also met with the communities that ask for help. But sometimes it happens when the company is already starting to do the land clearing. So yeah, sometimes when like from the top to down, but also sometimes from down to top. And this is where we started to work together and like collaborative with the communities.
Thank you so much, Defe, for answering these questions and for your working input. So we will now travel to the other side of the world, almost literally, and I'll hand over happily to Alex. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good morning in Bolivia and good night for Defe in Asia. And good afternoon, I think, for people in Europe. My name is Alex Villca Limaco. I am an indigenous from Uchupiamona, is my nation. And I have a presentation. I don't know if you can help me, maybe Robert. But I want to talk before to introduce about what happened or what's happening in Bolivia. I speak a little bit English, so maybe will be quite hard for me to find like a technical word to explain something because to defend the human right or nature right sometimes is very hard, you know. Probably people focus in Bolivia in the last couple of years or last couple of decades. People were thinking that Bolivia is the nice place for indigenous people due to that we have like a first indigenous president on earth, you know? But that was just like a narrative to the big organization like a United Nations, or in our region we have also the OEA, you know. But in the real life, the indigenous people in Bolivia still we are with a lot of problem. So just hearing to Defe in Indonesia is to her. Hearing to her is like hearing the same problem that's happening in Bolivia. in different level probably, but that's a similar way. Do you have, sorry, Robert, my presentation, or I can share maybe?
Can you
Yes.
start sharing your screen and the presentation?
Okay.
I can try to do it for you.
I think
Looks good.
okay. Okay.
Then just switch on
Did
the
you see?
presentation mode, and then I think we're good to go.
Okay. Did you see my presentation? No, not yet.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Could you click on the top left corner? There is this icon where you can start the slideshow. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So many problems in Bolivia. It was happened in this 2 decades. And that was the reason that, for example, indigenous people in different regions in Bolivia that's tried to have a meeting. But this event was supported by mainly NGO who are focusing in human rights or how to protect the environment. But after the event, nothing happened, So just indigenous people go back home, but and then wait for another event to discuss what is happening. Due to that, a group of indigenous people fighting in different regions of Bolivia, in the highland, in the lowland, in the valleys, we say, what we can organize just, or how we can create our own organization. But what's happened also in Bolivia? We have indigenous organization, but this indigenous organization, it was in the way of the government or the business interest. So the cooptation, I don't know if that is the way, but the government and the business company it was close to our organization, and they don't say nothing to protect our right, to protect the nature rights, So that's happened. So in the south of Bolivia, in the protected area, Tariquia, the indigenous people fighting there, they call to other indigenous people in the region, in Bolivia, to have a meeting. In that part, bore the Contio Cup in December of 2028. Yeah, 2018, sorry. Yeah. So since that, we try just to talk about how we can defend our rights in different regions due to the extractivism get powerful in Bolivia. But our government was talking about how to protect Mother Earth in different events in Bolivia, and especially in the international events, So this is the first big problem or issues that we have, the indigenous people in the lowland. That's happened in 2010, 2011. The name of this protected area is Tipnis, which means also indigenous territory. What happened there? The government decided to open a road in the middle of this protected area and at the same time indigenous territory. But the government, they don't get a permission, just decide to open the road. So these people, the indigenous people, start to protest, and they decide to walk from the lowland, the capital of the one of the department in this lowland is Trinidad in the Beni department, and to get to the main city, La Paz, which is the base of the government, is like more than 700 kilometers, but he decided to walk. when they start to walk in a couple of weeks, it was just a few indigenous people, like maybe 100 people walking, but then get more people joining to them to support. And then when they are getting more people, just the government go to attack in the place called Chaparina. You can see the evidence, the image. It was too hard. And then just the government take to the women, the children, the old people, and then just move using the police, and then these people, the government take to indigenous people, put in the car, in the buses, and bring to other place. For example, me is now in Rurrenabaque, which is Amazon town. So here are the airport, which Chaparina is like maybe like 100 kilometers from my town. So the close airport is here. So the government just take to these people and then bring to Rurrenabaque, and it was preparing to organize flight to bring to the indigenous people, but people never were to where or why they was organizing to organize this flight. So the people in Rurrenabaque just take the airport and organize immediately a protest. So the government, they don't have a chance to use the airport, and the indigenous people just was staying in Rurrenabaque. After that, a couple of days, the indigenous people decide to continue this protest in the way to the main city, La Paz. So more people was solidarity with this action, and this protest arrived into La Paz. It was a massive protest. So just government decide to stop this road in Tifnis, and they approve, I can say, the decree where they prove in the agreement of this decree just say no touch. Nobody can touch the Tifnis. But this law saying nobody can touch the Tifnis, it was also hard for indigenous people, because indigenous people, we need the natural resource from this area. But that decree was like a punishment for people just due to the protest, Yeah. So that is still the government are thinking to continue with this road. The government say we want to integrate, to join in the main cities, or we want to bring a lot of improvement for the region, for indigenous people, but we know that the main focus is just to obtain our natural resource from this indigenous land or protected area. Other big fight in Bolivia was, this is where we started also to war and to fight all together. The mega dams in the Bolivian Amazon. The government decide to invest a lot of money in the mega dams, with the idea to become the hub of electricity in South America. No, that was like the reason to this project. So when Evo Morales became president, many indigenous people in Bolivia, especially in the lowland, we was happy thinking he was in the indigenous side with indigenous people or protecting. But that was just a hope without nothing, And so in Bolivia, we have two main basin. One is in the picture you can see the Beni Basin, which means wind. The Beni is a native language, Takana, which means wind. The other main basin is Rio Grande in Bolivia. These two main basins, it was with this idea to implement the big infrastructures like mega dams. So when the companies go into our land, similar way in the Tibnis, without any permission, without the consultation, just we start to move, to have a meeting, to have an event, and the indigenous people decide just to have we call in Spanish vigilia. Is when people are sitting in one place, just constantly looking what happened in the area. So in the Beni Basin, in the place called Bala, is very narrow. So in that place, we start like 9 people, this vigilia, and then it was growing more and more and more. And like you can see now in the picture, indigenous people with your arrow and start to protect and support this protest. Due to the people from this company, it was into our land, working, starting with the studies, and just we was there like 12 days. After 12 days, this company, these people say, we need to go out from the land due to the government. They don't have a permission. They don't talk with you. So please let us now to go out, because they don't have petrol. They don't have food, because in this place we put the vigilia. Nobody from outside can go into our land, just the indigenous people, and also because in this area there are a lot of tourists, so just the boat with tourists can continue in the activities, but nobody strange. So in 12 days, this company go out. So we celebrate that like a victory, that we winner this fight. But after that, the government come again to our land and search to the leaders in each community. This protest was leadership by Mancomunidad de Comunidades Indígenas del Río Beni, that is the Spanish name. So it's like a joint venture of 18 indigenous community in this area, who create to protect our land. So yes, and then when this company go out, the government just take the decision to come back and have a meeting with the leadership in our community. We call to the main authority, corregidor or cacique, and have a meeting, and just the government say, what do you need? Write your list, and then sign. That strategy to sign that paper with the agreement was the reason to say, I have now the permission. So later they came back again. And that time, the indigenous people fighting against this project, we just moved to the cities, to the main cities, to talk in the universities, and to organize events, and to just to say to the people what happened in Bolivia, especially in the main cities. So it was too hard. One of our leaders fighting here just go to the main office in to the United Nations in New York, in this I don't know what is the name, but this meeting is each April, and focusing in indigenous right, So there they talk about these issues. She talks about these issues, and then the United Nations sent a message to the Bolivian government to say you must respect the indigenous human right. You must go with the consultation, but that's not happened. So now this project, the Bala and Chepete is the name of this dam, is still in the paper. We have the Evo Morales, and then we have the other government with Janine Áñez, and then we have the other government with Luis Arce, and now we have the new government. But nobody take the decision just to say we want to stop definitely this mega dams project in the Bolivian Amazon. So this project still can start at any time. So due to that, we are just trying to organize what we can defend in the future, That is, but in the Bolivia, it's not only the Bala. Bala or Chepete is the name of the dams. We have like 30 different dams in the planning, So some of them are starting to build. Some of them is just in the paper, but still it is continuing. The many indigenous people is in a very complicated situation. Flood our land. There are 2 protected areas, Mariri National Park and Pilon Lajas, and also 6 different indigenous nations in this area. The other big problem or issue in Bolivia fighting to defend our land is the Tariquia. I was talking to you, the Contiocav born in Tariquia in the south of Bolivia. There was this indigenous community. They say there are campesinos, like a farmer, fighting also against the oil exploration companies, and it was hard for them to protect the land, and due to that they were thinking and decide to call to more people and to create this Contiocav in 2018, in December 2018. So since that, these communities, the farmer communities, we call indigenous community, are fighting constantly. It was very hard also for them because the government sent the police to this area just to say we need to go into your land and we need to guarantee the for the oil companies need to go into the land. But it was also like in Tibnis, like in Mariri National Park, in Tariquia, it was the same way, no consultation to indigenous people, just using the police, and to go into the land, into the protected area. So the farmer people, the indigenous people there, it was just also for a long time protesting in the non-violence, just in the using the roads or the bridge just to control the land. So this is still, so in the Tariquia, who are fighting against the oil exploration company, like 2 or 3 years ago, there was like 30 women, the government say to start the criminalization. So that was hard. But this year, just a couple of weeks ago, the government decided again to go into this area. And now there are more than 10 defenders also with the criminalization. They are going into the justice. But for indigenous people, it's hard because we don't have the resource. And also, so in that way, it's very important how we can learn from other experience. Like I was talking, how we can find allies in different levels. And that's happened in the similar way in Bolivia, but the government and these big companies are focusing to go into our land. So just we are fighting. And I think it's very important to us to talk about and to get more idea how we can continue fighting again against this big challenge, the oil exploration in Bolivia, we have 22, 23 protected area now. In the picture, talking about 21, but all these protected area are very rich in natural resource. So most of them are open to the oil companies. But most of the protected area in Bolivia at the same time are indigenous land, indigenous territory. It's overland to indigenous land. So yes, and we are just in a when I say we are just trying to find the best strategies just to protect our land due to comparing Indonesia and Bolivia. We have the new constitution who recognize indigenous people in many articles, but this is just in the paper. Nothing happened. So the idea is how we can organize how the indigenous people can get or understand a deep understanding about the regulation, the law, our new constitution, also the international regulation or law, just to know how we can protect using the law. But this is very sad to us because most of the indigenous people in Bolivia, more than 50%, because we are like 36 official language in the new constitution, 34 in the lowland, but more than 50% of these indigenous people are in the highest risk due to the expansion of the extractivism, like the new road, the big infrastructure like a dam is growing. For example, the mining companies, the monoculture, the agricultures, the oil exploration. So that a lot of problem. This is that was since 2023. It was too hard, but start the fire in Bolivia in 2019 when government approved the decrees giving the permission to cut the tree until 20 hectares without any permission. The decree say yes, if you want to cut the trees, the forest, 20 hectares, go ahead. Since that, a lot of area in Bolivia in the lowland start to the deforestation, the fire. So this is one of the pictures remembering what happened in 2019. But since 2019, every year, this year in 2019, we lost like 5 million of hectares in Bolivia. And then since that period, every year we are losing like 2-3 million per year. The last year, in 2024, it was maybe the biggest problem losing our forest in Bolivia. It was just in 1 year, almost 15 million hectares that we lost in 1 year. So it's terrible for the indigenous land, terrible for the biodiversity. And yes, at the same time, when this happened, when the fire is gone, immediately the companies arrive to the area just to, for example, the miners, the monocultures, the people who are looking for new land arrive to this area. So that is also a big problem. Defe was talking about the oil palm, for example. Now we are hearing constantly about the idea to implement the monoculture with the oil palm in our land. So yeah, this is what happened with the minings. The gold mining in the Amazon River is probably the most delicate problem for indigenous people. In 2014, the Bolivian government approved the law. This law is focusing in the miners' activities and just open all the permission of flexibility, so they don't go to the land, they don't need permission, just start the activities. So now we have 1,000 of, in Bolivia we call cooperativas mineras is the name of this activity, but they don't have any legal permission. And these cooperativas mineras It's just the mask, it's just the face, because behind are the Chinese company, Colombian company, from many other countries. So they are just destroying our rivers. Yeah, the pollution is hard. Indigenous people living in the riverside, we are very contaminated. The average of contamination is in the Eseja indigenous communities in the Amazon River in Bolivia are more than 7 ppm. So that is terrible, because the United Nations, the Organization of Health, say no more than 1 ppm. But we are more, 7. That is, other indigenous people are like 4, 3 ppm of this, the level of contamination. So this problem, they know the reporter in the United Nations, for example. Also, we send this information to the for example, to the OEA, who has also the reported. Yes. And yeah, but this is still continue. They have the law to protect this, but nothing happened. The indigenous people also try to organize and to put the say the using the law, we just say to the government, respect our human right, but the justice, the law are in the side of the business company or on the government. So nothing happened to benefit to indigenous people or to the Bolivian people.
Alex,
See
5
these
more
pictures.
minutes, all right?
Yes, yeah. See this picture. For example, this is the Tao, the village in this area, when the miners company are growing so fast. Now, every rainy period, the river grow, and the river, due to the river lose the main way, now the river go into the house, are carrying a house, and also there are a lot of people who dead in the rainy period every year. So the damage is terrible. And now, due to this company are when they say are just finished to obtain the natural resource in the old areas, now they are moving to the new areas. For example, Mariri National Park is one of the highest biodiversity protected area. Yeah, but now this miner company are going into these new areas. At the same time, are indigenous. And then, yeah, for example, in the picture you can see the Tuichi River. Tuichi River was clean water until 2021, 2022. In the dry period, the water was clean, but now the water is dirty, it's muddy all year. But the government and the company say, no, there isn't activities, minor activities in this river. But the river is dirty. Why is dirty? It's due to there are a lot of minor companies in the headwater. So yeah, so that's happened. More pictures about for example, the newspaper go into the area due to the government, and these cooperativas mineras say no, there isn't activities in Mariri National Park in Tuichi River, but this is the picture, no, showing the activities starting in this area. So in that way, for example, in my case, I am coming from Uchupiamona Nation. The indigenous people there was starting to work in ecotourism experience like a tool to protect our land. Now in my community, in my village, for example, there are 7 different ecologists who are working to contain or to protect this kind of activities, the extractivism. And just one of these lodges, for example, called Sadiri, it was saved more than 31 hectares from the lodging activities, but now are growing the miners activities, so we need. But in the period of the pandemic, it was hard because no rangers, no park rangers, nothing. So at that time, these companies grow so fast, and yeah. So we are losing our territories, water resource, biodiversity, culture, and knowledge. We need to work all together, cooperation working with the government, cooperation working with big NGOs for more systematic the information. Cooperation needs to open to the world with the real allies that still are defending their territories and protecting areas. And that was, sorry, maybe we are in the limit, but just thank you, Robert. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you so much, Alex. Again, I would open quickly the floor to questions for Alex. All right, we have one first question from Marlene, and then we go to the chat with Meek. Marlene, please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Robert. Good morning, everybody. I'm Marlene from Democratic Republic of Congo and work with a civil society organization. I congratulate on this advance. It's encouraging to see a community truly beginning to organize, to take action, and rise out of oppression by participating in mobilization and demonstration, even as they are often repressed. In our context in DRC, I work with community, but it's still very sensitive stage because all action collective are perceiving that is an imposition or obligation, while the approach we promote is primarily of conscientization. I don't know how I can say it in English because I don't speak English. I think change should come from internal understanding and conviction, not in external pressure like communities in DRC are perceiving. We have also a major challenge. Some local actors become complicity with company owners. They corrupt them, and this weakness the struggle and compromise the demand of communities. That is very difficult. And at this time, we are a very strong challenge because at the first time, we have Chinese, and now we have United States, which come with a big position. But however, despite of this foreign power, the benefit of Congolese communities remain very limited. We have also a problem with civil society because it's very fragmented and disoriented, making it increase difficult to structure and coordinate the struggle, which reduce the effectiveness of advocacy effort. Thank you again for this sharing. This exchange are essential to strengthen our strategy and learn one another. I don't speak very well English, and Robert no, it was only a comment, only a comment. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. I think we understood you all very well, and I'm happy that you could connect to some of the content being shared by Dorthea and Alex. We have in the chat one question for you, Alex. So Mieke wants to know what you would describe as the most successful strategy for indigenous resistance to date, and whether it is possible to organize dialogue between different interest groups, and if so, how you would do it.
Yeah, a good question. And we stopped many big projects. That is incredible. We stopped many dam projects. We stopped the roads crossing and the deepness. Still, the government are planning. And maybe the Tariquia example is that the government continue, and right now they are into our land, into the protected area. The government go just jumping the protests, But we are fighting hard against the miners company, so if they are, if we join it to work all together, and we have a big chance to win, But it's not only the local, the indigenous people. For example, we create a platform, a kind of platform in the cities, just supporting the fight. So, for example, to stop the Bala dams or Chepete dams, the indigenous people, we have our own organization, but we create the new one in Rurrenabaque, which is the main town close to this. So we was working all together for different purpose. When the government just go into our land, getting the permission, we move to the main city using the social media. Also, we are using the social media. The reporter, the local reporter, the journalist in the land was very effective too, because they was taking picture every day and just updating in the social media, and the main newspaper, the main TV news, it was using that image. That was also the protests need to use paper with the message, because if we protest with nothing, no message, what's happened in the picture, especially if it is newspaper printed. So that was very powerful, I think, because the government was thinking just to say, no, like Defe was talking, this area, nobody is living. Nobody is living there, just maybe a couple of indigenous people. But no, a lot of indigenous people, we are living in the area, for example. So that was, and also at the same time, we was working, connecting with the human rights organization in the local level, in the regional level, and also in the international level. We went 2 times, for example, to the main office to the United Nations in Geneva. And we participating, for example, in Bolivia, every 4 years, have a exam of to evaluate to the government. So more than 50 organizations, including the CONTIOCAF, we participate just to write the report, but talking the real life, because the governments send the message. They have the paper, but also they bring indigenous people to say everything is okay in Bolivia. But at the same time, the social civility need to have a meeting. I think there are many strategies, but we are happy to know that in Bolivia, we stopped a big project, but now the risk is growing because the extractivism is still working in Bolivia. So maybe we know that every year it's getting more hard. Just a couple of years ago, one indigenous people was dead close to our community. So that is like one indicator that the violence is growing. So in that case, we need to think what we can do, but that is in that case. That is a question, I don't know.
Thank you, Alex. is there any question or comment left at this point? Maybe I'll just, while you think, take the time to comment. I think it's really, really a pity that our speaker from the Philippines couldn't make it, because there in the island of Mindanao, they face, of course, very similar challenges with extractive industries, and compared to what you described earlier, Defe, with the overlap of jurisdiction with the ministries, I think they're fighting that same struggle, that there are different ministries that in the end are a result of the colonial history of the Philippines, and that it is unclear, or well, at least people in power like to have it unclear whose jurisdiction is it in the end. And even though the indigenous people in that area have legal representation, but again, they're fighting to find their, simplify it horribly, but they'll fight also to find their spot in this legal and political representation part. So if you ever get the chance to speak to somebody from the Philippines, it might be really worth it. We'll do one or two more questions, and then I think we'll leave it there. So Sylvia, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you very much, both of you, actually, because I found that last remark on the different jurisdictions very interesting, and I would like to hear more about that. But my question really, my first intended question, was picking up from something that Marlene said on Congo, on the difficulty of the civil society being very fragmented. And I would like to ask this question. Also, in our experience, it was not everyone who was always against mining and things, because, and more particularly young people, they sometimes were very pleased to obviously find jobs. Instead of going far away, they would find them close by. What's your experience, and maybe to the two of you, even Dorthea and Alex, what's your experience with that, and how do you deal with that? Do you also dialogue within your communities to really have a discussion on what would be good in terms of economic chances and opportunities? Thank you.
Yes. To defend our land, to talk about how to defend our land or human right, need to accompany with economic alternative. If we just organize to say no to the miners, no to the monoculture, no to hydroelectric, that would be maybe in the short time people can start also to say, why not? We need employment, we need income, we need miners, we need maybe dams or something like that. So due to that, it's very we are working with the university, for example, also the NGO who are focusing in this thematic. Just to say, for example, indigenous people, our ancestor, it was just searching the gold in the rivers, but in different way. This is very artisanal, say, very rustic, traditional activities. But now people are calling traditional activities in minor, but it's just the name, because they are using a machine technology, and they can go into our land and destroy in the very few months or years, But the law in Bolivia, referring, for example, to the miners' activity, they don't include or recognize the miner activity doing ancestral for indigenous people. They recognize just to the government, recognize private, and recognize cooperativa, 3 levels. If indigenous people want to obtain the natural resource like a miner, for example, gold, need to create a cooperativa, or need to create a private company, or become part of the government. So that is hard for us, yeah. But our ancestor was using the natural resource, So we are asking to the government in different meetings why they exclude the indigenous people from this. So now indigenous people go to obtain these miners are illegal. Illegal are these big companies who are using just the name of the minería artesanal, no, or yeah, traditional activities, but that is not real. So the same, for example, if the companies are coming to say we have technology to implement the monocultures, so we can just produce a lot of rice or corn or sugarcane. But that's the problem is we say, yeah, that's okay. They will cut all our trees. Yeah, they clean the jungle, they clean the forest. And then the problem is coming, no water, no bio, a lot of problem. So it's hard, but that is one good question due to we need to think how we can just provide information also to each community, to our families, just to understand it and to have a good balance to take a good decision. Silvia.
I just wanted to add what Alex has been said. Yeah, there are stories come from the villages. The companies. I think one of the big problems for us is that the process has been wrong since the beginning. The fact that the government release they gave permits for these companies without acknowledging the communities. That is why we work on this area. Because they don't recognize, they don't respect that there are people who live generations through generations in this specific area. And so far, everything went well. The problem started when these companies came with a lot of promises to the communities. And yes, I have to admit that people in villages also wanted to live like people in the city, to have 24 hours electricity, good roads, and everything. And it became the bargain object for the companies. Oh, if you give us your land, we will build this, we will give you a scholarship for your children, we will as we will give you jobs from the companies to work in the company. And most of this offer always came at least in 2 times, because at 2 times in a year, for example, in July or in December, when the started of school, like the first semesters, and when people really need money to buy school supplies and everything, or near Christmas. So the peoples are being pushed into a condition where they have to, well, okay, because we are in need of money, because the whole system use money. We don't have access to free school or health care here in Indonesia. At the end of the day, they agree. And this is where sometimes the companies or the government create this illusion that the only point that you can be developed is from these extractive industries, while we know there are other options for example, agroforestry, for example, or community-based project, or something that's sustainable. But it is also a little bit, what is it, crucial? No, crucial. But sometimes before we decided to do a project, we need to consider a lot of things. In my case, in Papua, instead of just thinking about the human environment, we also think about the relationship between the human and the environment. It's very important, because the communities live very integrated with the forest. So you cannot separate the problems of environment and the problems of the human. It's the same thing. If you ask people in villages, they will tell you stories that their ancestors are coming from, for example, the specific animal or specific plant. And this problem is cross boundaries, cross territories. For example, I was in a meeting in European Union at some point, and then the government had very nice idea. People in Europe will not gonna use oil and gas anymore or fossil fuel. We will use very renewable energy. We will use, for example, timber or palm as the source of energy. And then there are some friends who ask, but you're not gonna destroy the forest in Europe, right? And I say, oh, no, it's not. No, we're going to take care of our forest. And then I was there and I asked the question, then where will this timber come from? Is it from my home? This or some, so it's something cross boundaries that everyone need to think. If we talk about climate crisis, then the issues affect everyone, the impact affect everyone. Papuan forest is the third lungs of the world after Amazon and Delta Congo. That's why we work so hard to protect this area because, yes, for me, I protect my house, my home. But if we work together, then we protect everyone's life instead of just one specific community in Papua. Maybe just to add to what Alex has said.
Thank you, Defe.
Thank you so much, Defe. Thank you so much, Alex, for your contributions today. Thank you for the audience for listening in and having a lot of interesting questions. And of course, also big thank you from my side to the Friends of NPAX for hosting this session and this series of events leading up to the event in Canada in June. So if there are no more pressing questions, I would, close the session for today. I hope you all took a lot of inspiration from it. And yeah, I wish you the very best and I hope we keep connected. And yeah, again, big applause and thank you for Alex and Defe. And have a nice evening, rest of the day, wherever you are. And goodbye.